I teach at ArtCenter, of course, and my students, I see they really concentrating, really struggling with, not knowing where the work is going to go, not knowing where their careers might go. And that's scary for a lot of students. As a teacher, you're trying to instill some confidence in them to kind of embrace the darkness and trust that what you're teaching them will maybe get them to a place where it's a little brighter and a little bit more clear what the path is. Any creative person, battles. Every single level of a relationship you have with a piece. And then in the end, hopefully what you have is a little bit of joy. I grew up in a town in Massachusetts called Chelmsford. My grandfather, he was a stonemason and built these beautiful rock walls, but no one else in my family was an artist. He was really the closest one. Ever since I was a kid, I just wanted to paint and draw. It's never changed. When I first got out of school, it was a lot of mixed media work, a lot of collage. I always look at that work as kind of like a stew, and it had everything in it. And then eventually, drawing kind of boiled to the very top layer, and that became the thing that I skimmed off, and that became the work. When I made the earnest effort to move to New York City, I found myself gravitating more towards doing more narrative-based work. And I wanted to tell other stories. I wanted to be illustrating different types of essays. And that led me to start working at the New York Times, as an art director. A few years later, they had an opening on the op-ed page, the opinion section. And I felt like that was the only section that I was really ideally suited for. I found myself putting more of my ideas or my experiences or my feelings back into the work. And with the Modern Love column that I work on every week, that's what it's asking for. The tone of those pieces, the kinds of stories that these people are writing about, they're incredibly revealing. At times it can be quite funny, but for the most part they can be really intense. I think that took some time to really understand this kind of emotional component of the work, a sense of anxiety or anticipation of things happening. When I was just leaving New York, I started compiling a list in a sketchbook of things that were making me nervous, anxious, things that I was afraid of. After a while you realize, wow, there's some issues here I gotta deal with. I had plenty of material to kind of work off of, and I just started trying to find different visual forms for that. After that, I did a piece on anger, I did a piece on internal and external pain, and then eventually I just switched gears. After I moved to California, I did one on beauty. This was where I started it all the way back in 2010, but this list just became endless. Over time you realize, there's no limit to them. I started in a place where it was like out of necessity, just purge myself of these kind of feelings and trying to understand why I was feeling the things I was feeling. I now am participating in what this thing is. I kind of have a sense of where it might go. One of the more recent pieces in the studio is an installation called Half Ton of Happiness. And it was a list that I had been working on of the things that were making me happy. And I had these river stones in my yard, and I was painting on them a little bit, and I thought, what would a pile of these look like? What would half a ton of these look like? This was the original sketch for the Half Ton of Happiness piece. In my mind, I had envisioned it to be at least my height or higher of stone. And so now I'm exploring other approaches to it, painting it in slightly different ways. The same list, using the same kind of building blocks, the same words, but trying to find a new form for it. I struggled with trying to find some balance between living and working when I was in New York City. It's amazing here in California. Being here with the kind of environment that exists, the light, the atmosphere, being outdoors a lot more. I spend a lot more time surfing, being out in the water, and now that I have a new baby, it has a huge impact on what I'm doing now. All those things affect what you do, and you fall in love with all those things. Your stories have to come from yourself, and if you're really unsettled, your work will reflect that. I've seen it with my students, I've seen it in my own work, I've seen it with other people's work. It's so hard to be an illustrator, so you have to give so much of yourself, and you sacrifice so many things in the beginning to get to that place. I feel like that's when you start teaching. That's when you actually sit down with your students. You're like, here's 25 years of experience. This is what I've learned, and these are the pitfalls you want to avoid. And you hope that those people that have gotten to that place, that they turn around and give someone a hand. Because that's when the design community gets better, the illustration community gets better. Like most artists, you do the things you do because you have this burning thing in you here and here. And that never goes away, you know, and it shouldn't. All those emotions will be touched upon as I'm in the battle. I'll love it, I'll hate it, I'll be confused by it, I'll scream at it, I'll paint over it. And hopefully in the end, the wrestling match, I come out on top. So most of the times not, but every once in a while, you know, yeah, I have some success.